Since its opening day on October 1st, 1982, Epcot, or as it was known at the time, Epcot Center, has been home to World Showcase. Today, we discuss new countries being added to this iconic Disney World attraction, longtime rumors, speculation, and where these new countries might end up being located. But in order to do that, we must first visit the troubled history of Epcot's World Showcase. Mexico, Norway, China, Germany, Italy, America, Japan, Morocco, France, United Kingdom, and Canada. The 11 countries that make up Epcot's World Showcase, but that wasn't always the plan. What originally started as 30 countries, then 20, then eventually dwindled down to 9, it's clear that Disney Imagineers bit off a little more than they could chew initially. Why did multiple countries fall through? Well, for a multitude of reasons, actually. Everything from a failure to land sponsorships from their respective countries' governments to infighting between two of the biggest camera companies in the world. I'll get to that later. Here are just some of Epcot's World Showcase plans that never came to fruition. Our first stop, Morocco. Originally planned to be where Mexico sits today, according to this pre-construction proposed layout, it seems like it would have had nearly all of the same shops and restaurants, just a different location. Next we have Costa Rica. A much smaller pavilion than Morocco, Costa Rica would have been home to an indoor-outdoor garden area, shops, a restaurant, an aviary, and a fishing spot? I know a fishing spot at a theme park sounds kind of weird, but that was actually one of the opening day activities at the old Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland, so it has happened before. Moving from Costa Rica, we meet up with Taiwan. A pavilion on a smaller scale would have only been home to a few shops and restaurants, no rides or shows or anything like that. One that honestly I would love to have seen is Australia/New Zealand. This would have been home to a small-scale version of the country's major architectural icon, the Sydney Opera House, that would have been front and center right on the World Showcase Lagoon, severely changing Epcot's skyline from what we know it as today. And obviously, that didn't happen, but it would have looked amazing. For those who are keeping track, we are still headed around the hypothetical World Showcase. Here in the real World Showcase, we've only literally just hit the beginning of China, and we've already hit 4 countries. This would be a jam-packed World Showcase if it were to have happened, but let's keep moving because there's so much more to cover. Right where China and the refreshment outposts sit today would have been Switzerland and Holland before hitting Germany. See, another World Showcase pavilion country that actually ended up happening, but this time in the location where it ended up being, which is kind of shocking that it still stayed here through all of the plan changes that we're going to be talking about. But unlike the planned yet unbuilt Brazil and Poland, these were countries that would have bordered either side of Japan and were both included for the original plans of just the first half of World Showcase. That's right, we have not even made it to America. Well, America in the modern day World Showcase, not the original plans. Those we have to finish our complete loop in order to get to America, which is actually way at the front. We'll get to that. Kicking off the second half of this never-built World Showcase, we visit Italy, which makes me wonder, maybe this version of World Showcase included an Italy festival booth with reasonably priced food. Next was originally to be the UK Pavilion, followed by Equatorial Africa. Was this a single country in real life? No. Did Disney treat it like it was one? Unfortunately, yes. Concept art showed that this would have been home to a tree house that overlooked a jungle and an authentic African village with performers originally from the continent. Again, this is a continent, not a country. This is the part in the blueprints and small-scale models that gets a little bit confusing. In this model of the original plans of World Showcase, it depicts what was clearly Italy, followed by Great Britain, Equatorial Africa, and then Saudi Arabia and maybe France? Although today we are basing our order off of this blueprint that is the most widely accepted original World Showcase blueprint. So that brings us to France, which based off of the looks of it, was to be the same version that we know today, just obviously minus Ratatouille. And Mexico, which looks nearly identical to the modern day version, just on the complete opposite side of the lagoon. Next we have the Scandinavian Pavilion. This was to be home of a combination of Norway, a country that ended up being in World Showcase, Sweden, and Denmark. And for those keeping track, in the hypothetical World Showcase, we have just made it to the spot between like France and the UK, kind of like we're currently obviously on the bridge there, but this is initially where it was originally planned to be. But like I said, this is based off of the old plans, and I'm trying my best to help you guys visualize exactly where everything is, because I know so many of you who are like diehard fans of Disney know exactly where every single thing is already, and I just want to be able to be like, hey, this is the actual thing, what it probably would have been what it should have been if plans went as planned. Israel, which was slated to be home to restaurants, shops, and a stage show. Then continuing on to the unbuilt Korea Pavilion, as well as one that we actually ended up getting, Canada. Followed by the Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates Pavilion. This was planned to be home to multiple shops, restaurants, and most notably, a magic carpet ride, which would have no doubtably fell victim to the same fate that Norway saw becoming the Frozen Pavilion, pretty much the Frozen Pavilion. Aladdin would have been your host on this indoor flying dark ride once Bob Iger was promoted to CEO, of course. Conceptually, it looks like it was kind of done in the style of Peter Pan, except you're on a flying carpet, and obviously not done in the 1955 technology that Peter Pan was done in, more like the 80s. Is it just me, or has anyone else ridden the Peter Pan ride semi-recently and felt like the entire time the car was gonna fall off the tracks from the ceiling? Who needs Halloween Horror Nights when they could just ride one of the oldest rides in Magic Kingdom? Other World Showcase countries that never made it to the site planning phase was Venezuela and the Philippines, both of which had some absolutely beautiful concept art, but unfortunately didn't even make it past the drawing board. Not only did so many of these countries around Epcot not end up happening, but there was so many attractions slated for World Showcase that never happened either. According to the initial plans of Epcot that included World Showcase, the America Pavilion was originally planned to be at the front of World Showcase, kind of like where we are right now. This version of American Adventure, yes, it still had the exact same name, was to basically be unthemed from the outside, but on the inside, a ride, not a stage show. Why did this never happen? Well, it turns out Disney had the massive plot of land for Epcot selected before these plans were made, with the existing body of water here planned to be filled in, I'm assuming. But what they didn't account for was the fact that this giant pond that you see here, where they wanted the America Pavilion to go, was not a pond, but a massive sinkhole that just happened to have water in it. Once the surveying of the land was done, plans obviously had to change. A walkway was able to be constructed, but really nothing more than that, and the America Pavilion was moved to the back of World Showcase, and is where it remains today. Germany was originally to be home to an attraction called the Rhine River Cruise. This was in the plans to be added to the Germany Pavilion in what Imagineers refer to as Phase 2 of Epcot, but it never happened. You can still find the entrance to where this ride would have been today. This massive mural originally stood as a coming soon teaser for the indoor dark ride that never happened. What could have been? Much like the Mount Fuji coaster, yeah, there was actually supposed to be a massive roller coaster in World Showcase, kind of like the East Coast Matterhorn, but themed after Mount Fuji. And the reported reason this didn't end up happening sounds kind of petty to me. I'll let you decide. Like I had mentioned previously, Disney was looking to have governments of each of these countries sponsor the pavilion. This meant construction, which would have cost them millions and millions of dollars, as well as upkeep would have fallen on these governments. Clearly, some governments around the world aren't too keen on dropping tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on maybe convincing a few Orlando tourists to visit their country one day. In the case that Disney would not be able to secure the governments as sponsored for these pavilions, they would look to companies that were very popular within these respective countries. Fujifilm, a major camera brand based out of Japan, was initially on board to sponsor the Japan Pavilion, as well as the Mount Fuji coaster that would come along with the original plans. The problem was, at the same exact time, there was another rival film/camera company that was agreeing to sponsor a pavilion at the front of the park, the Imagination Pavilion in Future World. And that company was Kodak. Fujifilm, deservingly so, saw this as a major problem that they might be overshadowed and wanted exclusive sponsorship rights to the camera/film field within the park. Because of this loss of a major sponsor, plans had to be drawn back from the original Japan Pavilion, including the loss of our beloved Mount Fuji coaster. Could you just imagine a Matterhorn from the 80s, not the rickety version from 1959, but also not the modern version of Expedition Everest from 2006? Somewhere in the middle, somewhere good, hopefully not too shaky. So all of that detailed history on what never was here at Epcot's World Showcase has led us to the big question of the video. Could Disney ever add a country to World Showcase? Well, here's what we do know. Disney originally planned a Phase 2 expansion to World Showcase, kind of like what we saw at Future World with the addition of the Seas Pavilion and the Wonders of Life Pavilion. But because of major sponsorship issues, Disney was even struggling to get Phase 1 completed by opening day. In October of 1982, Epcot Center opened with 9 countries around World Showcase: Mexico, China, Germany, Italy, America, Japan, France, United Kingdom, and Canada. Phase 2 was planned to happen in 1983 and was to include more countries like Equatorial Africa, Israel, Morocco, and Spain, all of which were promoted as coming soon during opening day of Epcot, as well as Denmark and Venezuela, but those were only listed internally. Let me ask, can you tell me which of those that I just listed actually ended up happening? Well, I think it's obvious. Morocco eventually opened in 1984 and Norway in 1988, which at that point had replaced Denmark. At the time of Phase 2 starting, a lot of the sponsors in play were kind of slowly backing out one by one, but what wasn't an issue whatsoever was space for expansion. Disney actually planned ahead for this. Knowing they had planned to add more countries to World Showcase, Disney set aside large pieces of land for future expansion. Some, like Norway and Morocco, would get used for their intended purposes, while some spaces like between Canada and the UK would be used for a flex space building. Within the recent past, they have used this building for festival space. Or between Morocco and France, that would get used nearly 40 years later for the show building for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Unfortunately, the reality of these expansion plots of land, for the most part, would never become future countries, and mostly be taken up by backstage buildings and facilities. For example, the Rhine River Cruise expansion show building that was partially built is now storage. With these aerial shots of World Showcase from Google Images, you could see costuming, break spaces, and utility buildings now taking up a lot of the space behind guest-facing facades at World Showcase. Not to say they can never relocate any of these buildings, but it does make Disney's intentions for this space very well known, or at least them not using it.
I brought it for you.
What is this?
Someone made it for me on opening day of Flower and Garden, and it says Kristen's Bro, and they gave it to me since you weren't here.
I'm so sorry, I couldn't be here.
Here
Okay, here, put it around the camera. There, you can't even see that it went. Okay. So let's take a second to play the hypothetical game. What would need to happen to get a new country to be added to Epcot in the near future? First and foremost, space. The two plots of land that make the most sense are the Refreshment Outpost area, which backstage is home to the docking station for the Lagoon Show and a whole lot of dirt, or a smaller space between Italy and United States. Great, so we've got the space, but what is arguably a more important part to this equation is what modern day Disney movie, or even not modern day Disney movie, can we squeeze into this Epcot land?
Oh, Coco should be added in Mexico.
Why not a turning red ride in Canada?
These are things that I hear on a daily basis. And that's just the reality of Disney parks at this point. There has to be some type of IP attached to any land, new land that's opening at the parks, and that's just how it is, so we're gonna assume that is the case. With those parameters in place, let's run some ideas. While we are waiting for a dining reservation here in Japan, we're gonna throw some ideas back and forth. I have a notes app. Don't look, that's cheating. And Kristen just has them off her dome. Oh, you have a notes?
I have a notes app too.
Okay, so we're gonna throw some ideas back and forth.
I made some notes while I was waiting for Ryan. Sneak peek, ready?
I gotta blur that out. So my first idea, Brazil, originally planned for World Showcase. With Disney semi-recently acquiring 20th Century Fox, there's even been a movie made that you could slap a ride on right in this Brazil pavilion, which is the movie Rio from 2011. It's an animated film starring a voice cast of Mark Zuckerberg from The Social Network and the princess from The Princess Diaries. I almost said diarrhea, oh God. Kinda. It's on my mind all the time. The only major issue with a Brazil pavilion existing in World Showcase is that all of these World Showcase countries, as of right now, have a major icon from their respective countries, some of which are kind of a piece of a religion whatsoever, but the only icon for Brazil in general is, what's the statue called?
Christ the Redeemer.
Christ the Redeemer statue. Thank you, Kristen. And that is just a depiction of the actual religion itself and the figure, and I just don't think that would work in 2024. I don't think it would work previous to 20. I mean, it didn't end up happening in the first place, but that's like the major, like, it's like the Eiffel Tower of Brazil, and you can't, you know, it could work. It's just, what do you depict in that land? Also, nobody wants to go on a Rio ride in 2024. So that's nothing compared to like Coco in Mexico or something like that. There's my first idea. Here's Kristen's first idea.
Okay, so to no surprise, all of my answers are around the basis of food. I really didn't consider anything into my answers other than the food that would be served in these pavilions. Yes. The first one I have is Greece. Greece is one of the places that I want to travel to most, and I know, like I said, it was mainly going to be about food, but also Greece is just beautiful. Imagine like in a little oceanfront kind of like fishing area in the World Showcase. I feel like that's something that like is not currently in the World Showcase. There's no like depictions of like the beach or the ocean really, so I feel like that'd be really cool. Also, I love Greek food.
I do have a question for you though. What intellectual property could you throw on Greece?
Oh. Ryan gave me the answer to this, and it's Hercules.
Wouldn't that be amazing, though?
It would.
It's such a good movie.
I don't even know the last time or if I've even seen that, but sure. I know that's Ryan's favorite.
Idea.
Okay, no, I want to say what I want in Greece.
Okay. Sorry.
So we'd have a quick service restaurant, kind of similar to a kava. If you guys have ever been to a kava, it's like a Mediterranean Greek Chipotle, and they have kind of like bowls, and they'd have like create your own gyros and stuff. I don't know. A lot of the food in Epcot here is not that healthy, obviously, and also not that authentic. I hate to say it, but if we had some type of like build your own bowl, build your own gyro situation, I feel like that'd be a great healthy alternative to the theme park food, and it'd be really delicious too. And as far as table service restaurants go, I would love to see one with obviously traditional Greek food where they kind of like throw the napkins and they're like, oppa! And it's just like a fun setting where the napkins are flying everywhere every so often. I think that'd be fun.
So I guess I'm going to have to ask Kristen to help me with some of these on my list because all I thought about was Disney IP. And what could be crammed into this park. So I guess you'll have to tell me what foods can be placed in Scotland because Brave exists and they've been trying to put Brave in the parks ever since the movie came out. I've never seen Brave, and not only am I saying that because I like being honest, but I know it'll push comments of people mad at me because I haven't seen Brave. So go ahead, all caps, give it to me.
I have seen Brave and I am not a fan.
I would personally love to see like a bow and arrow shooter ride. Would be fun. They don't have any shooter rides at this park, and they have too many at the. They need one at each park. Not at Animal Kingdom. That would be not good. How would that even work? Okay, never mind. The live music in the area would be great, and you could just have lots of kilted people dancing and stuff like that. That'd be fun. What food would go there, Kristen?
I actually don't know of any Scottish food, even though I am Scottish. Our grandpa is like almost fully Scottish, but I don't know of any Scottish food. I would imagine it's similar to like Irish food. My number 2 is Spain. Spanish food in general, like whether you're talking like Puerto Rican food, Mexican food, is one of my favorite types of food, and I do happen to love Spanish food. So something like that would be really, really cool to have here in the World Showcase. There would be a restaurant, kind of like a wine cellar with really great wine and tapas. You could even have a couple of like stands around serving I think I said tapas, and I should have said tapas, so sorry for the mispronunciation. But yeah, like a little wine and tapas restaurant would be really awesome. And then another thing I thought of is paella. Who doesn't love paella? If we had like almost like a family style restaurant serving up like big batches of paella, that would be really cool. And also I was thinking, like, I know there's a lot of places, whether it's in the World Showcase or just in Disney World in general, that do like beverage tastings and kind of like cocktail classes. Why don't we have like a cooking class where you cook paella? I thought that would be really cool, and I would definitely be all on board. So Disney, if you're listening, and we know that you are, Spain and paella.
My third and final idea is India, because there's plenty of great food that could possibly be here for an Indian pavilion, but also when I was Googling what Disney movies are located in their respective countries, The Jungle Book was listed as being a part of India, and I know there's been rumors of a possible Jungle Book ride or a retheme of Kali River Rapids coming over to Animal Kingdom, and why not just put a water ride at Epcot where you actually get wet instead of like just a water ride where you slowly look at plants.
Let it go. Or Frozen.
Or Frozen. I forgot. I was so focused on hate on Living with the Land that I couldn't think of the other one.
You also hate Frozen.
I also don't like the Frozen ride that much. I don't hate. Listen.
I saved the best for last, guys. The number 1 country that I would like to see in the World Showcase is, that's my drum roll, Korea. I love Korean food, and something that is like really cool and like a bunch of Asian cultures is like the atmosphere of like street markets and like food markets and fish markets and stuff. And Korea has a huge street food scene. I watch a lot of like YouTube videos of this guy. I think his name is Best Ever Food Review Show, and he goes around to all of these different markets in Asian countries, and a lot of his videos are in Korea, and he just tries all of this amazing food, and it all looks so good, and it's so interesting, and it's so unique. And I just imagine walking through like a little shaded area in a market and having all of these different places to eat, all these cool things to see. I would like to see it in Epcot. So now that we've got food on our mind, we actually have dining reservations at Teppan Edo, one of the best dining spots around all of World Showcase, and you can check out Kristen's full review of that in the link down below. We're going to be filming for that video. I'm sure I'll include some B-roll, but for the most part, we'll catch up with you guys on the outside.
The very last time I went to Teppan Edo was literally almost 3 years ago to the day, and honestly, I think I kind of enjoyed it just as much as I did last time. It's pretty good, not like super crazy good. I also haven't had a hibachi anywhere else, but the entire time I could not stop thinking about the fact that there's a very, very slight possibility that this chef has a rat inside of his hat that is controlling his every movement by like grasping tufts of his hair. And I don't know, some of the stuff was extremely impressive. It's very possible. Kristen, what are the chances? What a setup.
Well, we are very close to France, so I'd say the chances are very, very likely. Teppan Edo for me, I've been there once before when I was younger, and I remember it pretty much being the same as well. The portions were smaller than most other like hibachi restaurants outside of Disney. I thought a lot of the food was under-seasoned, and the like show that the hibachi chef puts on is super short compared to other like hibachi restaurants. There was no fire with the onion, no like tossing stuff in people's mouths, and overall in general it was just like less entertaining than other hibachi restaurants that I've been to. And I keep telling Ryan I'm going to take him to a hibachi restaurant outside of Disney so he can see that this one just isn't as good. Sorry.
One thing I really would love to do here on YouTube is reviews of new bathrooms. So every time there's a new bathroom that opens at Epcot, at any park, I'm going to review it. And they just refurbed the bathrooms here at the UK Pavilion, so I'll be out in a second. Oh my goodness. Tile work, 10 out of 10. Gaps in the stalls, however much that is, so not a lot. I wish it went all the way to the floor because I love stalls that do that. It was great. Water pressure great. No bidets though. I wish there were bidets. It is toasty in here. Wow. They could torture people by just locking them in here. Before closing out the video, I do want to give a huge shout out to Retro WDW for all of the amazing archival and aerial footage from Epcot used in this video. They are seriously the one-stop shop for everything retro Disney World, and I cannot thank them enough for all of the work they do. Thank you guys. As we're wrapping up today, I feel like I forgot to mention something. Most of the time when Disney is like introducing something new to the parks, they're deleting something that's existing. Now, without starting a World War III, what is a country that you wouldn't mind seeing going and like being replaced with a new one of the new ones? Let me know in the comments down below, just so I know you made it to the end of the video. Like, what would you get rid of and what would you replace it with? I will be replying to every single comment within the first 24 hours when this video gets posted. So all of you pity viewers, leave a comment, let me know, and thanks for watching today. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye.